Hello, welcome to Chapter 3 Podcast, the show for readers of science fiction, fantasy, and romance. This is Season 1, Episode 13. I'm Bethany, your host, and today I'm joined by return guest Izzy from Happy for Now. We're going to be talking about A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas, and I'm warning you now, there will be spoilers.
Wait, hold on, I have to leave. There's spoilers?
Yeah, definitely spoilers. If you want to support the podcast and get early access to episodes and exciting bonus content from our guests, check out our Patreon linked in the show notes. And a big thank you to all of our patrons, with a special shout out to our world-expanding patron, Trina. Your support makes this possible. Before our conversation today, it's time for On My Radar, where I share recent or upcoming book releases in science fiction, fantasy, and romance that I'm excited about, and then our guest will have an opportunity to share one as well. The books for today's episode will be released between March 17th and March 30th, 2021, with the exception of our guest recommendation, which may include any upcoming release. So first up, on March 23rd, we've got two books I want to highlight. Lost in the Never Woods by Aiden Thomas, which I just finished reading. It's great. It's a dark YA contemporary retelling of Peter Pan about children going missing and a young woman dealing with grief, trauma, and repressed memories. It's very different from the first book by this author, Cemetery Boys, but I found it to be haunting and really beautifully told. So, coming out March 23rd. Then The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, which I have pre-ordered because I sadly did not get an early copy of this one, but it looks great. It is the first book in a new fantasy series centering LGBTQ characters. It follows a soldier sent to stop a rebellion in her homeland and a rebel leader looking for a turncoat. Then on March 30th, there are three titles I want to mention. First up, Wild Child by Eloisa James is the latest installment in a historical romance series. This one follows the wildest of the wilds, Lady Joan, who runs off in breeches to join a theater troupe, then falling for the straight-laced Duke who tries to save her reputation. Then, of course, Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo is yet another book in the Grishaverse that's coming out. I'm really interested to see how this one is going to wrap up the always epic stories that she's telling. I'm loving her characters, and I'm definitely excited for the related Shadow and Bone show coming to Netflix in April. It's coming soon. We're all very excited.
I cannot wait. I'm dying.
I know.
It's like the one thing I need in my life right now.
It's going to be awesome. Yes. And then lastly, a book that I am currently reading and loving, Careless Whispers by Sinithia Williams is the newest book in a very soapy romance series following an elite Black family in the American South. I have been waiting for this one because I love prickly heroines. This one is following the oldest sister of the family. She is both prickly and brilliant. This one is an enemies to lovers romance between Elena Robideau and her arrogant nemesis Alex, and so far it is everything I was hoping for, so going really well. With that said, please join me in welcoming Izzy to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
It's going to be
You
fun.
messaged me. I was just like, oh, yes, please, let's talk about this book.
I'm so happy. I was like, I need, because I haven't talked about it enough in my vlog and my review, so we're also going to do a podcast episode.
It's Sarah J Maas. It's mandatory.
I mean, you know, it's good.
Mandatory.
Okay, so if you want to briefly introduce yourself to the listeners and share your pick for an exciting upcoming release.
Absolutely. So I'm Izzy from Happy for Now. I was on in January, and we talked about like book genre. I mostly talk about romance books, and I'm slowly adding in some manga content. So if you're looking for that, I'm adding that in right now as I go on a marathon
Love it.
of mangas lately. I don't know. I needed to change a pace, so that's happening. I picked two books because I could not decide at all. I was like, these both sounded so good. They're both ones that I'm like super hyped for. One is Sweet Hand by N.G. Peltier, and it comes out March 30th. And this is a kind of sounds like enemies to lovers situation where a girl has to go back home for her sister's wedding, and she broke up with her like musician boyfriend, swore off musicians. She opens like a growing pastry business, and this guy comes into her life that is in the music business, and she does not want anything to do with him. And I was just like, yes, please. This is exactly what I want. So yeah, I just think that sounds really fun. And it's set, I think, like on an island, maybe. I don't know. It looks very tropical on the cover, and it's just making me feel warm when I look at it. Nice. And the second one I picked was Dial A for Aunties, which comes out April 27th. And this is like a sounds absurd, honestly, like very not rooted in reality situation where a girl ends up accidentally being involved in a murder with her blind date. Like she kills him accidentally and has to call her aunties. And there's a wedding and maybe some curses, and then a new love interest shows up. It just sounds. I know. I was like, this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like, give me the wackiest, most banana pants book possible. And that's what Dial A for Aunties sounds like.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, so we're here to talk about A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. I don't really have a roadmap for how this is going to go, but I feel like there's a lot to talk about.
I agree. I was like, I have no idea how we're going to tackle this because there's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think... Okay, so maybe a place to start with this would be to talk about each of our history with Sarah J Maas and feelings about her. Like, that could be some good background information for listeners. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Why don't you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. I've been reading Sarah J Maas since I've read everything but Crescent City, whatever that one's. I know it's not called Crescent City. Okay, it's whatever.
House of Earth and Blood. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read everything but that, and I started, I think, with her Throne of Glass books, and then I started reading ACOTAR, of course, and I feel like they were a big part of my like diving more into adult romance journey, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Even though they were marketed, mislabeled.
Yep.
I don't know, the whole mess of a situation, and I really fell in love with that world. I continue to pick up things that are marketed to me that they are a Sarah J Maas alike, and then be very angry about it. It's like I can't stop. I know better, and I can't stop doing it to myself. Like every time, I'm like, I know better. No, I don't. Still pick it up.
So, yeah, I've been reading her for a long time also. Started with Throne of Glass, and I think I started reading when like the first 3 books in that series were out, something like that. So it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And I also really enjoy her books. I get why they are not everybody's cup of tea, because it's not like they're the most amazing literary things, but I enjoy them. So I think what was interesting for me with this is that ACOTAR is probably my least favorite of her series, or had been.
Oh, interesting.
A Court of Thorns and Roses. Yeah, I love the Throne of Glass series. I'm also really loving Crescent City, and ACOTAR was fine. I just like to pretend that A Court of Frost and Starlight didn't happen because I hated it.
Oh, I unhauled that book, and somebody asked me if I didn't like the series, and I said, no, that book doesn't exist in my world.
No. Just pretend it didn't happen, because also then Nesta's journey is much better too, and people are less irritated.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I picked this up because I was like, I always like her books. I'll probably enjoy it. And then I ended up loving it so much and was not expecting that. So
I mean, her writing, I always call it that marathonable quality, right? Like you really can just like pick up that first book, and next thing you know, you look up and you've read 3 books and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Like, I mean, they're so long. I mean, this book is long. It's like over 700 pages.
I finished it in a day.
I finished it in 2. So yeah.
I gave up my vlog. I was gonna vlog it, and I was like, I'm gonna be the first one out, because I always finish the new releases in a day. Like it just, it's what I end up doing. And I was like, I can't stop to film. I'm not stopping to film. I was like, we're just finishing this.
Oh man. Yeah, it was not what I was expecting. It's definitely, for me at least, it was a very emotional journey, which I did not expect. I thought I would probably enjoy it because, Nesta's a prickly character. I tend to really enjoy prickly heroines finding love. It's one of my favorite things.
I mean, I wanted to see, a big thing for me, I was like, I'm really curious to see Nesta redeemed. Because, like, it's her book. She has to be redeemed. We can't leave this book not liking her.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how you felt about her going into it. Like, you have to, in some capacity, feel better about her by the end.
Yeah.
And I really, I wanted to see how Sarah J Maas was going to handle that.
Yeah. I mean, I think she did it brilliantly, right? I mean, I loved it so much, because you really get to be in her head, and you see how her trauma and her pain is causing her to lash out at other people, and it's not just because she's being a jerk. I mean, she is, but like...
She is. I think, and it's interesting, because like, if you think about the first 3 books, and like, especially that last book, the sheer trauma the 3 sisters have went through, Elaine, Nesta, and Feyre, is like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And like none of it is addressed in that last book, really.
No.
None of it is addressed in that thing that doesn't exist. That little short story we got that was disappointing.
Yeah.
And this is like the first time I felt like they kind of attempted to address it head on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was curious, of course, how Sarah J Maas would handle that, because I don't know. I feel like going in a cauldron to save everyone is a pretty big task, you know, to take on this ability to not lose everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Nesta's kind of a badass, but she's also dealing with PTSD and depression and has so much anger, understandably. And I just loved the fact that this let her be angry and let her have her
Yes.
feelings and take whatever
Yes.
time she needed to find healing.
Absolutely. I loved her. I love her anger.
Me
It sounds
too.
so bad, but I do. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's very relatable. Like, who doesn't get mad about something and, like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe not get it out properly.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think we often aren't comfortable with women's anger, don't let them
100%.
experience it. And I think it's so important and so powerful to have a book where a character can feel those feelings and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Also, the thing about this, a lot of it was very emotional, but the thing that made me actually cry was the female friendship. I just loved it so much. Because she, like, she becomes friends with these two women who also have been so hurt and traumatized. And then that scene during the blood rite where they like open up to each other about their history and their trauma. I was like, this is so beautiful. They love each other and support each other.
I loved the fact that, like, we not only got Nesta being angry, but we also got them also being angry and then, like, coming together to train and be angry and work out their anger together. Because, like, let's be real, sometimes you just gotta punch something, not a person, like a pillow, like a soft thing, something, you know, just to, like, work through some aggression. Like, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that they basically ended up with the equivalent of advanced self-defense classes for women who had been through traumatic experiences, which I just think is cool. I just thought in general the mental health stuff in this book was handled so well. Or the whole
Were you surprised by it? Did you expect it at all?
No.
Okay, because, like, I literally left the book and I was like, well, I have to tell everyone the content warnings on this book.
Oh. Yeah.
Because I was like, absolutely no one I know is going to expect this. And it's going to be, and it was a lot. Like, I did not expect I just didn't expect it. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't.
Are you talking about like the mental health stuff or the pregnancy stuff
No,
or all of it?
I mean, all of it in general, really. But, like, the PTSD levels, like, I don't know. For whatever reason, I wasn't expecting it in my brain when I went in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel really silly for not thinking that Nesta's going to have
I
more
mean,
issues.
I guess I knew there was going to be some of it because I've seen Sarah J Maas in live streams talk about how she was writing this while also on her own journey toward mental health and that some of that went into this book.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff actually, like during this time she was writing it, she like got into an exercise routine for the first time, was going to therapy, was getting on medication, like was dealing with her own trauma and mental health stuff, which is interesting. And another thing that I think we can talk about that seems to be maybe the most controversial thing, which I have a lot of feelings about, but the fact that there's traumatic birth at the end of the book. Which a lot of people have a lot of feelings about. I have very strong feelings about it, but
I have very strong feelings about it, which is probably surprising.
Interesting. Okay, tell me. I'm curious.
Okay, so last winter, like not a few months ago, one of my best friends had a traumatic miscarriage. And also, I think I've said this before other places, like I don't know a single woman who's had a baby in the last like 4 years that hasn't had a traumatic birth. And I'm not joking. Like every single person I know that has given birth in the last like 4 years has a traumatic birth story. And I just like, when we came in and it was like, oh, Favor's pregnant, I was like, sure, of course. But then like we got this whole weird side plot about like mother mortality, which we kind of already knew from the previous books. Like, they discussed how the mothers would die often.
Yeah.
And then, like, the whole thing about, like, why the birth would be difficult. And it just felt like, I mean, and maybe Sarah J Maas also had a difficult birth. I don't know.
She
She does have a
did.
baby.
She did.
Okay.
Yeah. She had an
So
emergency cesarean.
maybe she's working through that. And I was just like, oh, I have to, like, go tell, like my bestie, I literally have to tell her when there's babies in books right now because she does not want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when there's surprise, magic pregnancy, surprise pregnancy, or miscarriage, any of that. Because you never get, those heads up are never there.
Yeah.
Which is really, like, disheartening, kind of. Because I feel like we're ignoring a very serious mother mortality and birthing issue we have going on in our country. I don't know. But, like, I don't have kids, so and I never plan on having them, so I never, like, one of my fears is pregnancy and, like, all of that, those traumas I've had told to me, if that makes sense. In which that make me go, yeah, I think I'm good on my decision. Like, I'll hold everybody else's babies and I'll be good over here. But I don't know. I was stunned, like, literally just stunned at how much of it was in there. And it felt like accurate, if that makes sense, in a way.
Yeah.
Like, it felt realistic-ish to the real world.
Yeah.
Even though we're in a fantasy world. I don't feel like we're in that much of a fantasy world in these books, really. Like,
no, yeah. I mean, they're,
but
a lot of the real world leaks into it. Yeah. Well, so I have 2 kids, and I had a pretty traumatic birth with my first and dealt with PTSD symptoms for a while after. And so it was interesting to me because I've seen some people who were angry about it being in there and felt like it shouldn't have been. I had a really different experience. I felt very moved by the fact that she did have it in a mainstream book on page where it wasn't the whole plot. Because I feel like we often don't talk about things like miscarriage and infertility and traumatic birth, and it is, like you said, super common. I know so many women who've experienced those things, and I have a friend also who I was like, hey, I know you're reading this book, heads up, you might want to just prepare yourself. This is
and it's just like,
I
mean, I felt it was well done. I just didn't expect it, and I was just like, oh man, I'm like, now, and she was so excited for this book, and I was like, oh, I hope she gets it over. She read it and she was fine, but I was like really nervous. Like, you need to know. Like, I was like, check my content warnings before you go in. I was like, it's vague, so but I get why some people were bad, but I also think, like, we're older than some of the readership for this, right? So, like, within our age group and our demographic, we're going to know more people who have had children than if you're like 20, most likely. So I think that also gives it more levity and, like, realism, I guess.
I thought, to me, it made a lot of sense because I feel like this entire book is really about the trauma women experience. And I think that's just another form of it. I'm sure it was cathartic for her too, because I know she did have an emergency cesarean with her kid. And I'm sure, that got written in partly, I would imagine, processing that. So I just think it's interesting. There's been really intense responses on both sides to it, but I appreciated having it there. Like, I don't know.
It felt well handled to me, at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, I thought so.
The key,
people
right?
Disagree,
like,
but
if it felt like, I don't know, shoehorned in for full plot, like, or like if it was its own novella, like, I would be like, no, please no. I don't want to read that.
Well, and I kind of saw it coming the more, because we got so much stuff about the high risk pregnancy Feyre was having that I was like, oh, okay, this is where it's going. And we, for those who've read the whole Throne of Glass series, we maybe should have also known this was going to be a subplot, because in spoilers for Kingdom of Ash, we see Feyre, they're in parallel dimensions, guys. Like, these, in case you didn't know, her worlds all exist. Her series all exist in parallel dimensions. And so in Kingdom of Ash, there's a moment where we see from afar Feyre and Rhys on a hill, and Feyre is visibly pregnant. So, like, if you read Kingdom of Ash, you would have known that, like, there was going to be a pregnancy plot.
I remember when that happened, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" Like, you're giving me flashbacks when Nicki Minaj came out. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, they're all parallel.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm really curious to see what kind of crossovers we get now with the Crescent City series. I have a friend who is theorizing that a character we don't know much about in House of Earth and Blood is actually Amryn, and I'm like, maybe, I guess we'll see. So that would be really very cool. Interesting. So we'll see.
I would be very here for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It's been controversial. There's also people I'm seeing who didn't like the fact that they were magically saved, but I'm like, what did you want? Did you want them to die? I did not. Like, I don't understand.
I've seen a lot of interesting criticism overall, I think, for this book. More than I expected.
Really? There's always so much criticism of her books, though.
Listen, though, I just thought that, like, we were at the point that people who don't like her books aren't going to pick them up.
You would think.
But that's not what... Again, I had too much faith. Too much faith on my part. I know. Too much faith. Because, yeah, I was just like, oh, they just won't pick them up. Like, it's fine. I don't know why I continue to be surprised that people are critical of her after how many books.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. It's interesting because she does have a very specific style of writing that some people find really irritating. I don't. It doesn't bother me. I like it. I think it's charming and cozy. But if you don't like her style of writing, no new book she puts out is going to make you like her.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, too, were just mad that it's Nesta, I felt like, before they fully read it. And I was just like...
I hate that, though. Like, can we not hate on prickly, angry women? Like,
It's the dream, Bethany. It's the dream. You have no idea.
Maybe one day.
One day we will get there, but I don't know when that day is.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because I find people like Nesta more relatable, where I'm like, yeah, I mean, I would be angry and lashing out also if I was in that scenario.
I think the most valid criticism I saw was the fact that, like, it was just her gambling and all this stuff that threw it over the edge, and not, like, them being like, you need help. Let's get you help. I was like, but also... I don't feel like she would have just came otherwise, if that makes sense. If they didn't, like, cut her off and then pull her in.
Yeah. No.
Like, I'm not doing this.
No, she absolutely wouldn't have. I mean, they had to give her kind of an ultimatum. Well, it's an intervention is what it is. I mean, this is basically a version of getting her into rehab. Basically. I mean, because
that's how I read it.
Yeah. It's like Fae rehab.
Just punch it out. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. Okay, so obviously the other thing that we're hearing a lot about, and I don't know, part of me just finds it silly, but a lot of people are talking about how steamy this book is. Which, guys, okay, let me just say, like, clearly Sarah J Maas is pivoting to write adult romance. And
the best decision ever to be made.
It's what she's wanted to do. I'm glad she's just doing it. And, like, for the length of the book, for an adult romance, it is not an unusual amount of sex.
It was not steamy enough for the length of the book. Let's be honest here.
I was fine with it, but, like, the people who are like, oh my God, it's so much sex. I'm like, yeah, I mean...
Like... I mean... I guess there's, like, face sitting, so maybe that feels like a lot.
I mean, she's also, like, thoroughly using, she's not using what is the word I'm looking for?
Is it allegory?
It's not allegory. That's not the right word.
That's the word that I'm pulling, of course.
Oh gosh.
Euphemisms?
Thank you. Yes. She's not using euphemisms for genitals any longer. Yes. It's so and instead of the shock factor in the sex scene being like that they were on a table covered with paint or they were flying, it's like, oh, we're gonna, like, do it in the hallway or from behind. Like, it's like more normal romance book stuff.
Again, I felt like the most extreme was the face. Because I have to come on the podcast and be like, so there was that. Because
I mean, yeah.
you know, like there I felt like there was that, and otherwise it felt pretty like chill.
Yeah.
I mean, look, am I I can't be the judge of like level of heat though, because like I have read Krampus romances,
Yeah,
and
you read
like
some like way out there stuff.
like I am like, what is the line? I'm gonna go over just to see like what's there, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas I'm like, I might like step a toe in something that is like well within other people's lines, and I'm like, nah, it's a little far for me. Like,
Yeah,
but
like,
but I was thoroughly comfortable with this. Like, this was fine.
I mean, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I honestly am just so happy she's embracing adult.
Yes.
And we're not towing this weird line where I have to explain to people that this book is shelved in YA, but it is not YA.
Yeah.
And it is not appropriate for your young teen, maybe your older teen, depending. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts there.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as what conversations you've had with them and where they're at in their life.
Right.
I could have read this when I was 16 or 17. Don't think every kid could have, if that makes sense.
I could not have read this when I was 16 or 17.
We had a very open dialogue in my house.
Yeah.
In a good way around that sort of stuff. So I don't feel like it would have been a big deal.
Yeah.
Mind you, my mom also read like Flame in the Flower at 13. So she was just like, read books, fine. Whatever. She would not have minded. But yeah, I just think it was nice to see her fully go for it.
Yeah.
Instead of like everyone being like, was it chapter 55? Is that the one?
Yeah. Which I just thought was kind of dumb, honestly.
Same. I was just like, okay.
I was like, okay, there's paint.
Woo! Like, let me tell you about the weird things I've read. Because I'm over here like, oh, it's just paint. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I think what I appreciated too about the sex scenes in this is, to me, it felt like it made sense for the characters. I mean,
absolutely.
And like, it's more aggressive for most of it, which makes sense because Nesta's really angry and this is part of how she's working that out. But then to me, it also made it such a big emotional impact when they finally like make love for the first time after they finally admit their feelings for each other, and I was like, oh, it's so beautiful because it's like more than just
I agree. It was like perfectly done because it was like a slow build of them like fully coming together, and like it was definitely like pretty much all the acts. I mean, we didn't like do butt stuff, which is fine, but like, they worked their ways through your general acts of like sex, and like that was nice, and it was well done. Yeah. And it wasn't like, I don't know, it was nice to read. I was like, this is enjoyable. This is what I want out of Sarah J Maas. Yeah. Like when she writes sex scenes. Yeah. Now, if you read this and thought it was steamy, maybe cautiously venture into romance. Like full blown. But
yeah. But I mean, it's clear that she's pivoting, and there's a reason that they're setting her up in events next to authors like J.R. Ward and Cressley Cole. Like, this is the direction she's going.
Yes. And I love it. I'm so excited for it.
You know what's funny? She said that she wrote and then cut and didn't even send to her editor a menage scene.
Yeah, I got message from people after I finished the book asking if it was in there, and I said no.
No, sorry. But there is that moment of her like imagining what if Azriel joined them. So I'm wondering.
I don't know that would have worked.
No, it wouldn't have, because the Fae guys, they're so possessive.
Yeah, I don't like, the Fae guys are not. They're not menage guys. Like no. They're one and done. Like that's it. Just two people. They cannot share. I was like, that would have been weird. Yeah, it wouldn't.
Now,
it wouldn't
if
she had kept that in and it made the final book and everyone was like freaking out about how steamy it was, I'd be like, all right. Yeah. Y'all got this one. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It reminds me of, Jay Kristoff for the last Nevernight book, as a pre-order perk, released the menage scene that had been cut.
That's really what she should have done.
I mean,
I wish. I can't wait. There's got to be like fan fiction of it already.
Oh, I'm sure. Like
100%. There's got to be fan fiction of the menage scene, and like that makes me so happy.
Yeah. That's so funny. No, I thought it was good. It was well done. Yeah, you know what's funny is I'm getting a lot of comments on my review of this of people saying, I didn't think I was going to read this, but now you're making me want to try it. Which I'm like, hey. And even somebody who was saying that the online vitriol towards Sarah J Maas had made them not try to pick up her books and then finally did. And they were like, I'm so sad that I was not reading her for so long.
Like the other day my mom asked me, she's like, do you have those books? And I was like, yeah, they're on my Audible, like go log in and go grab them, because she was like, I don't know why I haven't read them. I was like, read them. She was like, you're gonna love them, you're gonna go on a great adventure. And I'm like waiting now for her to be like, I did it, I read them all, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, I don't know how you missed it.
I mean,
I just
they're fun.
I really truly I know people have criticism for lack of representation in her books, as far as like race, I guess.
Yeah.
Casting is my understanding.
And queerness is not always done super well.
Yeah, and I get that. But if she's not comfortable writing it, it's better to not write it than to force it. And the mental health stuff is just like, I've not read PTSD rep like this, I think.
It's really good.
Ever.
It's really good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think even with that stuff, it's getting better. You didn't, I think, because I've read the House of Earth and Blood, and that it's clear that she tried really hard to do a better job of including characters of color, and people still aren't happy because they're never going to be happy with her books. So like, she's trying, and it's certainly not coming from a bad place with her either. It's again, it's one of those things. I've seen her on a lot of live streams and heard her talk and met her, and she has very progressive ideas in politics. And so like, I think she's trying to figure out how to do the best she can as a straight white woman to like not be harmful and figure out like, and so, yeah, like, is there less representation? For sure. But I do think it's improving somewhat.
Yeah, and I think it's better to not include it and do less harm than to include it and do more harm at the end of the day. So
yeah.
It's one of those criticisms that like, I get it. And I feel like sometimes I think it's that whole thing of like, women really, like female people, presenting people really like this book and this author in general. And so we all must hate it. Like, we must hate on it.
Yeah.
Because
she's very successful.
Popular.
Yeah,
it's too popular. It's too, centric of, I can't even find a physical copy of the book anywhere.
Of what?
I can't find a physical copy of the book anywhere. I went to like 5 bookstores. None of them have it.
Oh, of this?
Yeah. I was like, I didn't pre-order it because I never pre-order books. I'm really bad.
I was so glad I did, because originally I wasn't going to, and then I started reading it and I was like, I love this. I'm so glad I pre-ordered it.
No, I went to Barnes & Noble's, Books A Millions, Not a One in Sight, smaller bookstores. I'm like, okay.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, she's wildly successful, and I think trying to do a good job with what she has and promote things that are positive, and has done a lot too, just in terms of giving to charity, and like, I don't know. I think she gets a really bad rap, and
she's pretty private too.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe is part of it. Like, I think people don't see her. If you don't go to the lives, you don't hear from her maybe.
Yeah.
As much. I mean, I know she shares on Instagram some, but
she does Instagram live streams sometimes. So I think that's the thing, is like, if you catch her, she's great, and she'll bring on, she'll do stuff with her husband, or like I saw her do a live one time with Christina Lauren, which was fun. But yeah, she's definitely more private. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, one of the things that reading this I realized I love about her writing is I think she does such a great job of writing these cozy kind of domestic scenes that break up the tension and the action. So like in this case, Nesta taking a bubble bath and eating chocolate cake and reading a romance novel, or Nesta having a girls' night and like doing dumb magic stuff. And I love that. Like, I find it so charming.
Well, it's real life. Like, let's be real. Like, when you have like a really crappy week, what do? personally, I usually take a bath and read a romance novel.
Yeah, I love
Like,
it.
I just felt like it just makes them so real and like
Mhm.
relatable in a way that we don't often see, and much needed in a, although I guess this is more like, the other books were very plot driven
Mhm.
and this felt more character driven.
Yeah, which I
Uh,
like. I think she's better at that anyway. I'm glad she's like I think her strengths lie in
that was one of the
interpersonal
criticisms I
relationships.
saw. People didn't like that there wasn't more plot, and I was like,
Mm.
I didn't need a ton of plot.
No.
But I will pretty much, I mean, I know I haven't read House of Earth and Blood because,
You
well, I'm
should
like
read it. It's really good.
I'm like saving it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like
Mhm.
I was like, I just kind of want to have one of her books there when I'm ready for it, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Mhm.
And that ended up being the one because it's like the new series.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I want to read it. I want to read it. Don't get me
It's
wrong.
good.
But like, I
It's
do
good.
think she excels in that, just enough plot, but all these small character moments that
Yeah.
continue to engage you. Like when Luce, oh my gosh. My mouth does not want to say his name now. Lucian, there we go, shows up
Mhm.
and is like looking for Elaine, like wants to make sure he sees her before he has to leave again and stuff. And I was like, I want their book. Like every couple, it's like, I want their book. Can I have their
Yeah.
book now too? Like, how long do I have to wait?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be a while, obviously, but I also like this idea of moving more towards this companion novel thing where we're going to focus on a different character or couple each time
Yeah,
instead of the trilogy of the one couple. I like that as kind
I
of
do
as a
too.
setup.
Did you know this was a standalone, just one book for Nesta, or did you not know
Mhm.
yet?
I
Okay.
knew, yeah.
I had paid no attention. I was like delightfully thrilled at the end. I was like, oh my gosh, we finished her story in one
Yes.
book. Because I had a
Yeah.
moment, I was like, oh, if this is 3 books, I'm going to be annoyed.
Yeah. No, I think that's the plan is what it sounds like moving forward is to do standalone companion novels where each book follows a different couple. I mean,
That's
she's just leaning into the romance side of things for that, which I think is great. So now I think House of Earth and Blood, or like the Crescent City series is now more of her larger scale
hmm
epic fantasy. And it's fun. I'm excited to see crossover with it. But yeah. That has a lot of funny little moments too, like silly domestic scenes. And I agree, like I think it makes the characters feel real and believable and it's so cozy. And there are people who get so annoyed at some of this kind of stuff she does. But
See,
I
and
love it.
I think as a romance reader, sometimes when you read something like that, you're just like, yeah, perfect. This is what I want. Like,
Hmm.
we want that, like, peek into the life with the drama on top sometimes too. But,
Yep.
like, the little, like, dip into, like, okay, here's what we're doing to manage stress.
Yeah.
Because then I'm not stressed out that they're stressed.
Hmm. Yeah. Can we also talk about the house? Because the house is such a
Please.
great character, and I didn't put this in any of my reviews, and I'm like, man, I thought about it, and then I kept forgetting.
There's so much. Like, I
There's so
literally
much
just
to
read
talk
a
about in this
paragraph and
book.
I said I was done. I was like, here we go. We got two, like, paragraph and another sentence. I'm done. There's too much in this book for me
Yeah,
to, like, cover it all.
yeah.
The house was amazing. I
Hmm.
want
It was so great. I loved it. And like the moment where it showed her its heart was so sweet.
it. It's
Like,
precious.
it's like you're getting emotional about an inanimate object, but it was so cute because it would like share romance novels with her, and I just thought it was great. It was like the first being she opened up to.
Mhm. It was really sweet. And I like how it knew what she needed.
Hmm.
I love a slightly sentient home.
Yeah.
In, like, not a creepy way. Like, I don't
I mean,
know.
I like a creepy home too, like in a gothic, but
Well,
this was
okay,
like
let me
a
rephrase
this
that.
was a
I just want
cute.
it in real life. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want,
No,
like, this
no.
in real life. So, like, this is, like, the kind of the perfect level of sentient house for me.
Fair. Hmm. It's like a puppy kind of that reads books. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And
I don't know.
it was fun too. I would say her reading romance novels in this book, that you could tell, like, Sarah J Maas reads romance novels and
Yeah.
loves them, and is, like, kind of giving love to the genre, which
Yeah.
I think is just fun.
I liked it so much. It
Did
was
too.
nice. And I was here for all the Valkyrie stuff. that I thought was cool. I mean, we talked a little bit about the training, but when I liked the connections too of like the priestess who had done well, it was funny, right? Because she had also done research about how there were parallel worlds, which was like a nice little Easter egg, and then doing research on the Valkyries, and I was like, oh, maybe this is the solution, and then it was the solution.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I love that they were like, just the Valkyrie setup in general. I was like, this is great. We're getting expansion into the like army forces, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And that they're like proving that they can do it too. It's not just a boys' game.
Yep. And then, yeah, like the whole thing with the blood rights. I feel like it's so funny. Like I also see people talking about that and saying like, oh, it's so not believable that these women who'd only been training for like a few months could actually like.
But they're like fairies too. Like they're all like semi-magical beings.
I mean, so why not? They're like, these men have been training their whole lives. And I'm like, yeah, but women are great.
They're men. So who cares? Like, I didn't find it that unbelievable because I just felt like she had her fae beingness, right, at the end of the day. And I felt like it just made, I don't know, it worked. Like, it was a good plot driver.
I thought
for
so.
The end.
I liked it.
We're obviously not the people to come to be overly critical.
We're not. Yeah. It's like, you're going to have to go elsewhere if you want like us. I'm like, I know I've seen this criticism. I just was not bothered by it. I mean, I think that's usually my feeling with Sarah J Maas, even with the like some criticisms, I'm like, I don't even think it's valid, but there's plenty of criticisms. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. I just wasn't bothered by it. I thought it was charming. It worked for me. Like, I can see why you feel that way, but I didn't.
Like, as a reader, you have to know if you're, like, character or plot-driven to an extent, or what you're in the mood for.
Right.
Like, because I vary wildly if I want plot or character-driven stories. But, like, romance generally is mostly character-driven, I would say. And if you don't like that, and you know that this book is that, then don't read it.
No, seriously.
Like, that's what I don't get.
No, well, if you're looking for an epic fantasy book, like Sarah J Maas is not really the author for you. If you like fantasy romance, she's great. She's really good at more character-driven stuff. And like, in my opinion, I don't know, people have different feelings on this, but I always feel like the books where she tries really hard to push the plot and to do a lot of action, I like those usually
like
end up being
the last one,
like Kingdom of Ash.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, I Careless, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, it's fine. It's another battle scene. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's really where her strength lies.
That's not her strong suit.
No. Although she does do I mean, you haven't read it yet, but she does do a pretty good job in House of Earth and Blood. There is a pretty epic, action-packed ending, and with like twists and turns and stuff, and she actually did do a pretty good job with that. But it's less big battles as much as other things. So.
I mean, it was a lot at the end of Kingdom of Ash, and even Wings and Ruin was a lot happening, and it felt so long. I guess I don't know what else to call it. Like, it was like Kingdom of Ash. I was like, I knew she had said like we were gonna get an HEA, and like that's her thing. Like, she's not gonna not give us an HEA. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get through this. But also, it was so just dragged out. So I appreciated that this was like, okay, let's quickly do the blood right. Okay, we're done.
It was perfect.
Let's have our other drama, and then we're done.
Yep. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. Like, yes, let's please focus more on the internal lives of the characters than on the action and the fighting. Like, that makes me happy. And it doesn't make every reader happy, but it worked for me. Also, like, other funny things I think she does that I could see being irritating for people. I got a giggle out of the winter solstice gifts that Nesta got. She basically gets the magical equivalent of a reading light and an iPod.
You're right. I was like, wait, what did she get? No, it was perfect. Well, I mean, let's be real. We don't spend the first 3 books getting to know Nesta in any capacity, but beyond her and Elaine seeming like spoiled brats, right? Like,
right.
And that's the point. Like, if you're going to read a Beauty and the Beast-esque retelling, and there's two sisters that she has, like, they're not going to be likable, generally speaking.
No.
I've read very few in which the siblings are likable because that's part of the plot, and that's why, like, she ends up with the Beast.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, it's just there's no time focused on either of them. Like, really, like
Not
like
much.
a droplet, you know, over the course of those 3 books. So
Yeah.
why would anyone know it's a gift?
Well, I just thought it was funny that it was like, I'm going to take these like real world gifts and make a semi-magical version of them. Like, I
That's
just thought it was
thing
funny.
when authors do it though, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's like an iPod, okay,
Yeah.
and then that's it. That's yep, all right,
Yep.
cool.
I
It's a
thought it was
reading light.
funny. Yeah. Also, I
Even if it's
love
a
the
cool one that like clips on her head, you know.
yeah.
You're like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
I just had that thought. I was like, that'd be hilarious. It was like that headband on.
That would be funny.
She'd retcon that in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like we do get to know more about Nesta in this book. Like she secretly is amazing at dancing and has this like Dancing with the Stars type scene, which I just cracked me up too.
That was so good.
That was fun. I was really worried though that the whatever his name was, I can't think of it now, but the creepy dude that wanted to marry her was gonna like try to assault her or something. I was like, oh no.
I was too. I had a very like heart in my throat moment of like, please no, can we not? She has suffered enough.
I'm so glad that it did not go that direction. Yeah.
I had a same moment. I was like, I don't need the secondary plot with this. Like the baby's enough.
Yeah.
Like, yep. Just give me the baby secondary plot. I don't need this other like potential love interest situation.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so what do you think the next book is going to be? So what's funny is I know in a stream, Sarah J Maas said when we finish the book, it would be obvious who the next book was going to be about. I don't think it is.
Wait, she really said it would be obvious? Because I have no idea.
Right? I think in her head, she thinks it's obvious, but I don't think it actually is.
Well, I mean, I guess, like...
Because it could be a few people.
It's either Azriel, but that doesn't... He's, like, barely in this book.
Yeah. It could be Elaine.
I think it might be Elaine.
Yeah.
That would make the most sense.
I hope she gets more interesting. Like, I'm curious, though. Like, I'm curious to see how she turns her into a more interesting character. Because, like, she just hasn't done much at this point.
I mean, Elaine's just, like, there.
Yeah.
She's just
in her garden.
She's like, hey!
And like, hey, I've got dirt. I'm going to garden now. See you later. I'm not going to talk to anyone.
She's just like, I'm here in the background, occasionally saying hi, and then walking away.
Yeah.
She is an extra.
Oh, which reminds me, I think it's so funny, you know, the scene where they're walking into the ball and the 3 sisters are all wearing like black dresses. And I thought the descriptions of them was so interesting because you have Feyre wearing what's described as something similar to when she had been in the Night Court before, which means it was like super scandalous, except she's super pregnant, which I'm like, hey, rock it. Like you just go, like, why not? And then Elaine is wearing something very modest because she isn't comfortable, which I thought was interesting. And then seeing Nesta kind of get a little bit more dressed up.
Yeah, I liked that part. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I it sounds so mean. I feel like I'm not here for Elaine, let's be honest. I'm there to watch Lucian and her like be adorable, but like, you know, okay. I guess.
I mean, I think, I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious to see what she does with it because I don't know that other than A Court of Frost and Starlight, I have never disliked a Sarah J Maas book.
Yeah, same. I mean, I think people are going to riot if it's not Azriel to an extent because everyone is like, a lot of people I know are dying for his book.
Yeah. I had heard something because I know one of the special editions has an extra chapter about him and people were saying they hated him after it. I didn't get that one. I got the Feyre and Rhys extra chapter in mine. So I have not read that and I don't know what happens in it, but something.
Well, I was hoping to walk into the store and open it at Books A Million and read it, and then go to Barnes & Noble and open it and read it, but they didn't have any.
That is unfortunate.
Because that was literally my plan. I was like, well, how am I going to read? But I was like, I'm just going to go to both stores and read them. Like, it's fine. I have both by me. Read them, and then I'll know what happened. But now I'm kind of like, maybe I don't want to read the bonus chapter thing after the comments I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that one wasn't great. I think this one was fine. I'm trying to remember, like, what even... It wasn't that... It was fine. Like, I read the one...
I feel like it's fine. It's whatever. I don't even remember it.
Like, I don't even remember, like, what... Oh, yeah. I think they're talking about, like, Elaine, like, that she stifles Elaine, and she finally showed some teeth, and then it's, like, you know, her and Reese having some sexy moments. Like, that's pretty much...
So maybe it is her book, then.
Maybe. Could be.
Who's in the back of the Books A Million one? Is it just Azriel's chapter?
I don't know. I haven't read it. I'm sure we need to, like, find spoilers for the Azriel chapter.
Hold on, let me Google this.
Okay.
All right, hold on. I found a website.
Okay.
I found a Tumblr. Let me rephrase that.
It's like, we're going to help out all the people who want the spoilers without buying all the books.
It's just like...
Azriel giving a gift to Elaine. I found shots of it.
I just found it. Here you go. I sent it in this little chat. It's 11 pages, and it is Azriel. Wait. Are they trying to ship her and him together?
Oh, yeah.
But loosen. Like, that's who it has to be.
Really?
I mean, I thought so.
Yeah.
This has to be the next one.
Yeah, it's got to be Azriel and Elaine. That's what it's... Okay, so you heard it here, folks.
Wait.
What?
Okay, so Nesta got an iPod Bluetooth speaker situation.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what Elaine got?
What?
2 bean-shaped fabric blobs to put in her ears and block any sound. She got
earplugs.
Or AirPods.
Happy solstice. That's hilarious.
I just was like, wait a minute.
What? Lucian is her mate, but I think they're going to have her and Azriel together? Is that what's happening? Which I mean, that is interesting, right? Because a lot of people are not loving the idea that the mates are a forced thing, or that they can't, like, choose differently. So I do think that could be an interesting story, actually.
I mean, if this becomes a throuple, I'm fine with it. I just want him to be happy. The poor man has...
I'm sure they'll find another way for him to be happy, though. I don't know.
I know.
This is interesting.
This is not what I expected. Okay, I think I have a feeling on the vibe this is giving me.
I see why people are saying they hate Azriel after this.
He is so full of self-hatred.
Yeah.
I see why everyone hates him. Oh boy, it just got really bad.
Hold on. What?
This is a choice.
Interesting. Okay, this is really interesting. Huh. Okay, I finished it. Did you? Or no?
I am on the last page.
Okay. This will be something juicy to talk about.
I'm glad my Googling was...
I know, I'm very glad you found it. Okay, so for anybody who hasn't read it, this is the extra chapter in the Books A Million edition of Court of Silver Flames about Azriel giving a winter solstice gift to Elaine, who is the mate of Lucian, but she doesn't want anything to do with him. She's attracted to Azriel, and Azriel is into her, and he tries to kiss her, and Reese is like, no, stay away from her. And then he goes and secretly leaves a necklace for Gwyn, who is one of the friends of Nesta, who, like, was sexually assaulted, and he saved her and stuff. So this is interesting. Like, is this going to be a Azriel and Elaine, or is this like Azriel and Gwyn somehow end up together after a lot of, like, crazy stuff happens? I don't know.
Do you know what it read like? This is a very like deep cut for anyone who's read like some of the priest romances. Azriel reads like one of the guys that's like Priest by Sierra Simone, like very torn in his own like system of beliefs and like what it should or shouldn't be. Like the way in which he's like he doesn't want to touch Elaine because like he's so damaged.
Mm-hmm.
It's very weird.
Mm-hmm.
This very weird vibe. I was like, what were you reading when you wrote this, Sarah? Like, please, were you reading Priest by Sierra Simone? Because that is the vibe I got from this. Or like Sinner as well. Like very dark taboo. Like it just gives off that taboo vibe.
Yeah. Which
in
I
a
feel
not expected way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I feel like she's kind of it seems like she's kind of ready to dive into things that she maybe didn't feel like she could do before.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would disagree. Yeah, it's definitely there. But it's definitely there in that one. That feels like very taboo.
Yeah. I am really curious to see where they're going to take that. It's funny that people are saying they hate him after it. Did they hate him because he tried to kiss Elaine?
Or do they hate him because of Gwen leaving her a gift?
Yeah. Because
is he too timing here?
Well, and Gwen has been through so much that like I would definitely not want to see her get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that. I don't know. That's interesting. Okay, so what's your prediction of what we're going to get? Clearly it's probably going to be something with Azriel.
I think it's got to be Azriel, but I don't know who he's going to be with.
Like, is she going to let the mating thing be a choice or not?
I don't think so. I mean, because like it's a trope, right? Like the series, it's a trope in the series. It's I love the trope fated mates, like personally. Like I love it because I just think it's so it can be done really, really well. It can be done really badly. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times it's very convenient. And yeah, I think it's gonna be him and Gwen. And if it's not his book, it's Elaine and Lucien falling in love with each other and him in the background like crying through a window like while it rains.
I actually think what could be more interesting though is if it's Azriel's book and he leads Elaine on before realizing Gwen is his mate, and Elaine gets pissed off and becomes more interesting before she eventually ends up like I think that could be a really interesting larger plot arc.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that would make the most sense, obviously. I just love the idea of him standing outside in the rain crying.
He better show that he deserves Gwen though, because she deserves like the best.
I think that's my like concern here is he is a very broken character. Like Nesta was broken and angry, but like Azriel's not even angry. He's just literally like defeated. I feel like to an extent, if that makes sense. Like he doesn't need redeemed necessarily. He's just like so down about everything and like sad. He's just the saddest boy that ever did. And I'm like, I don't know. I would like to see him happy.
Yeah.
What does that journey look like?
I don't know. Well, you know, maybe it's singing with Gwen.
Oh my god.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I'm glad I found it.
I did actually think it was kind of interesting that we had the whole scene in here of Nesta going to semi-religious services and finding like some use out of that, and Gwen is a priestess who does like this religious, so I think that could be well, and especially with what you were saying about the religious side of things, it could be an interesting plot arc that way of like I don't know.
We're gonna get into some weird Jesus imagery.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I wonder.
That'll be interesting because I will be like, wait, what? But yeah, I don't know. Like something about that chapter to me read very like when I've read some of the taboo priest religious books with more religious like taboo-ness in them, I guess.
Well, I mean, she could be setting the stage for it because we had, I mean, like I said, Gwen is in the religious priestess choir, and we had a whole semi-religious service scene with Nesta in this book. So like it definitely could be a setup for doing a book that kind of explores that.
I was to tell you now, I cannot wait to read everyone's reviews about how much I'm here for it.
I think it could be interesting. I mean,
I like a weird taboo, so I'm here for it. But I just know what's coming.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's okay.
All right, so there you go, guys. That is our prediction of what we're getting next. It's going to be a ride. It's going to be a few years before we know if we're right. But yeah, this was fun. Thank you for joining me.
Let's not talk about how long I have to wait. I don't want that.
You'll just have to start reading the Crescent City series, is what it is.
I will, because I think the next one's supposed to come out soon. So
yeah, cool. All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody. This has been Chapter 3 Podcast, and I'm your host, Bethany. You can follow us on Twitter at Chapter 3 Podcast, and you can also find me on YouTube at Beautifully Bookish Bethany, talking about even more bookish things. The next episode will be available in 2 weeks, and this episode's bonus content will be available to patrons in the next few days. Thanks for listening.